Now's the time we make our move and secure everlasting freedom. Yes, freedom! We present our strength and extract our vengeance. Yes, vengeance! And we may die, but we die in glory. Yes, glory! And so what if we kill a bunch of innocent children? Wait, what now? Before I get started on this review, I just want to remind folks that I do have a Patreon now. I know a lot of you already know that. Thank you, that's cool. But if you want to, you can check it out at the link down in the video description. So in these 4 episodes, we do get to see Willy Tybur's play, and we get to learn the truth about Helos and the Tybur family and the old King Fritz. And as the play goes out, first he tells us sort of the story that historically has been shared, that Helos was this hero that worked with the Tybur family to destroy the devil of all the earth, the one who gave this Titan power to the Fritz family and chased the Fritz family off. But then Willy goes on to reveal the truth of it, that it was actually Karl Fritz, the old King Fritz, who came up with this story and this fiction because he wanted to bring peace to this civil war among the Eldian Empire that had popped up because they had conquered all their foes. And as I've said before, when you conquer all your enemies, but you have this lust for war, this desire for power, this need to fight, you have no one left to fight but yourself, and civil war becomes inevitable. So in order to stop this, King Fritz helped come up with this fiction along with the help of the Tybur family. He took as many of the Eldians as he could to this island called Paradis, built the new city with a wall around it, the wall filled with colossal titans, and he made an idle threat to use those millions of titans in the walls, which I've got to say, 1 million is a lot, and I know those are big walls. The colossal titans are huge. It's still hard for me to believe there's actually millions of colossal titans in those walls, but that's the claim. And the threat is, if the Marleyans ever come looking for trouble, where they're going to find it, because he's going to cause something that it's known as the rumbling, when he brings all those titans out of the walls, and they can just march across the landscape and destroy everybody. But then we also find out from Lord Tybur's play something we already knew, which is that, like I said, it's an idle threat. King Fritz has actually taken a very pacifistic vow, a vow of peace, and the way that he took the vow, it gets passed down through his bloodline as the founding Titan power gets passed on. But the quandary, the problem, the new threat is that the Fritz bloodline has been usurped in a way. I mean, Historia is still of that bloodline, but she doesn't have the founding Titan. The person who now has the founding Titan is Eren Yeager, courtesy of his father Grisha, and that's where this threat is, because Eren isn't bound by this same vow or this same oath that the old King Fritz had taken and passed on through his family. So that seems to be why Willy Tybur feels now's the time to do something about Paradis. But my question's going to be, why did some other people feel that earlier was the time to do something? But we'll roll around to that as we go through these episodes. One thing I found interesting, and I feel like there has to be something that's being said by this, but I don't know exactly what, is that the characters performing in the play, particularly the guy who I think represents the Warhammer Titan and the guy who I think represents Helos, well, they're both blindfolded. And I wonder why these characters are blindfolded in the play. I mean, it gives it an interesting, chilling look, but I feel like it's also there to communicate something about how they don't really see what's going on, how maybe this history is a blindfold of sorts that's been put around the Marleyans so they don't know the truth of the conflict, and the same goes for the Eldians in the Liberio district. I don't know if I'm reading too much into the blindfolds on the characters, but I think it is there to represent something. I think Willy has done that intentionally, and I'm having a little fun exploring it. If you have some ideas on what those blindfolds might represent, don't hesitate to share with me down in the comments. But as this play is being performed on stage down in the basement, another notorious basement, Eren and Reiner, along with Falco, well, they're having a conversation. And I see some really nice echoes and juxtapositions as these conversations are going on below the stage when you compare it to the words being said up on the stage, the theatrical production as well as Willy's monologues that are thrown in there. Like, Eren tells Reiner that we're the same. You came to Shiganshina, you're the reason why my mother's dead, and now I've come here as, sort of a foreboding threat about what Eren is going to do and what we will eventually see him do. And he says, hey, we're the same, so a little bit of an echo there. But then we also get this interesting juxtaposition because Reiner is so overwrought with guilt. I mean, we've already seen him in the last group of episodes on the verge of pulling the trigger with a rifle shoved in his mouth. But here he prostrates himself in front of Eren and he says he wants to die. And just as Reiner says, I want to die, our point of view goes up to the stage where Willy says he wants to live. Even though he's an Eldian and he's a devil, he says, but I want to live. Which is also an interesting juxtaposition as we find out exactly why Willy came to this festival and why he's on the stage. It's not to live. Even though he says, I want to live, seconds, milliseconds after, almost simultaneous to Reiner saying, I want to die. I found that juxtaposition interesting, and you can just keep stretching it out because Willy will not live and Reiner will not die through this 4-episode arc. Also, another kind of juxtaposition or echo. Up on stage, Willy talks about the importance of war, and he declares war between the rest of the world and Paradis. And as the moment that he declares war, well, Eren transforms into his Titan form and commences the war. He fires the first shot, if you will, in this current war that's being declared. And I like how well that timed. And it's not like Eren heard Willy's declaration and then transformed. He was sort of in the process. The electricity was sparkling around Eren as Willy makes his declaration of war, and then Eren shoots up to the stage and starts the war. Great timing, just beautifully well done. It really has impact on the screen that way, and it's sort of like just the narrowest of margins where you can say that Willy declared war before Eren struck, but Eren was clearly in the process of his attack before the war got declared. Kind of makes me think of some things I've heard in historical analysis of Pearl Harbor. I don't know the truth. Everything I hear secondhand, not from any primary sources, but the idea is that Japan had timed it so the declaration of war would be received in Washington about 30 minutes before the attack, but there was some kind of break in communication, so the attack hit before the declaration because they were cutting that narrow margin. Well, it's the same kind of thing I feel like Eren's doing. He's cutting that margin as close as possible before he blows up under the stage and kills a lot of people. And then Falco is bearing witness to this whole thing because he's down in that basement with Reiner and Eren. He witnesses Eren's transformation. It clicks to him that this person he thought was Kruger is actually Eren Yeager. About the same time it clicks to me because I was slow to recognize this, but I did recognize it a little bit before Falco did. But the look of confusion and disillusionment on Falco's face when he realizes that he was sort of an unwitting accomplice to this initial attack from Eren against Liberio and Marley in the war. It's heartbreaking to watch it because Falco has nothing but the best of intentions here, and I do feel bad for Falco and the way he was used and manipulated and how he must feel in this moment. Now, I do wonder what role the Kiyomi character is going to play, or Kiyomi, because when I first saw her, back in that reception with the ambassadors and one of the warrior candidates spilled some wine or something on her kimono and she covered up for him, I thought maybe she's like a secret Eldian, like people didn't know she was Eldian, so that's why she's kind of the Eldians, or at least an Eldian sympathizer. That hasn't been shown to be true yet, but I still feel like there has to be some importance or some significance that character is going to play some kind of significant role in the future of the show because significant attention has been given to her. And then she also leaves town right before the assault begins. So does she know more than the other characters know? Or does she have some intention that we don't quite understand yet? I feel like there is a significance there. I feel like from what I've seen on screen, there's still potential that she could be a secret Eldian, though comments seem to suggest otherwise. And in that moment, down in the basement with Reiner, Eren has a major moment because he does identify himself as the bad guy. And he does kind of say, like, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy is all a matter of perspective. It depends on where you're standing when this person shows up. And that's a poignant theme that's been going on through this show for quite some time. But he, at this point, self-identifies that, yes, to some people, I am the villain. And he seems to own it and to embrace it. And we're going to see just how far he's gone with that as these 4 episodes unfold. But a major change in who Eren is. And I have to wonder what's leading this and what's feeding this. But Eren does use the phrase, keep moving forward. And I talked about those echoes and juxtapositions. And of course, we've seen a couple times. We saw it initially when it happened in season 1. Then we saw it in a flashback where Reiner's reflecting on Eren struggling during cadet training. And Reiner's advice to Eren was, keep moving forward. And now to have Eren sort of throw those words back at Reiner, that's got to hurt him, a person who's already hurting enough as it is, and just another chilling echo that this show's given us in these 4 episodes, and I suspect is going to continue to give us through the end. But episode 5, it has an info card that tells us about Magath's original plan to send 4 child warriors to Paradis to reclaim the Founding Titan. So one thing it does make clear here is that it was Magath's plan, because I didn't know necessarily if it was his plan or if he was just executing orders from higher up. But that info card puts the responsibility for that operation squarely on the shoulders of Magath. And it tells us how it happened, but it doesn't necessarily tell me why. Like, why at that moment, when there seemed to be a pretty good peace between Paradis and Marley, did Magath feel like he needed to send these 4 warriors to Paradis to reclaim the Founding Titan? There's some suggestion from the previous seasons that it was because of resources, natural resources on the island of Paradis, and perhaps there was a real need for Marley to get those. But when you look at what a Pandora's box was opened up there and what a mess Magath made, and how Magath seems to have come to regret that decision, like none of these problems going on in this 4-episode arc would be happening at all if Reiner and company were never sent to get the Founding Titan in the first place. And once again, I've got this Pearl Harbor theme in my head here, some World War II themes, and I think of a quote that's been attributed to a Japanese military leader after the attack on Pearl Harbor. I don't know the truth of the quote. Like I said, I hear things secondhand, but basically it says, I fear we've awakened a sleeping giant. And Titans are quite literally giants, so I can see maybe Magath is having some realization that that's what happened after he sent those 4 warriors on that ill-fated expedition to get the Founding Titan. Something that gave me a lot of insight in episode 6 is we do see that Willy indeed has every intention of sacrificing himself. He understands that he's going to die as this plan of his unfolds. And I think that's important for me to understand, because it shows that whatever is motivating Lord Tybur, whatever ends he hopes to accomplish, it doesn't seem to be motivated by self-interest. I mean, he must really believe in what he's saying. He must really believe in what he's doing, because he's going to die for it way before he ever sees the fruits of this labor. And he is shown to be a decoy, and I kind of was suspicious that he would be a decoy, because that's sort of how Attack on Titan has trained me to see events now. It's given me that cynicism that can't be undone. But we do find out it's his sister who is the Warhammer Titan. And this makes that whole event back when Willy first gets to town and he's talking to Magath, and he asks Magath if he can tell, after all his years of experience working with the warriors and the shifters, who it is that holds the Warhammer Titan, and Magath admits he can't. Well, it makes all of that a bit more interesting, doesn't it? Because maybe he's testing the waters to see if anybody can catch on to his ploy to be a decoy while his sister holds the power of the Warhammer Titan. I suppose that was a clue to us that he's a decoy, though, when he's asking Magath those questions, because he's indirectly asking us, the audience, if we can really tell who holds the Warhammer Titan. But in episode 6, Magath has a great line, and I'm going to read this so I get it right. He says, "There's no doubt that Eldians are spawn of the devil, and there's no doubt that we are devils ourselves." And he uses the term spawn of the devils for the Eldians, calls the Marleyans devils ourselves, which is maybe a way of saying that the Marleyans are the devils who spawned what we're seeing currently from the Eldians. And this is like Magath's realization of what kind of a disaster he started when he sent those young warriors over to Paradis to get that Founding Titan. I like that insight that Magath has. I thought that was a great line. And this 4 episodes is really going to visit this cycle of devils, spawning devils, spawning devils, spawning devils, and it never seems to end. But we do see the sister, I think her name's Willy Tybur. We see her transform into the Warhammer Titan, and I gotta say it was a beautiful transformation, really elegant. It sort of looks like a bird spreading its wings as it grows up. And I thought, like, this is like a phoenix rising up from the flames. That was very much what that imagery of that transformation gave to me. And we do see a new power with this Titan, and every Titan has their own power, but there's also a bit of like one-upsmanship coming with every new Titan that we see, and the Warhammer Titan does not disappoint, because the Warhammer Titan has such control over the hardening ability that it can create weapons, essentially, or at one point creates a massive spike and a massive tree in the ground that spears and tangles up Eren. Incredible, this hardening ability to use from a distance, or to use sort of separate from their own body. I mean, you could say that Eren has used that hardening ability to create those knuckle dusters that he used, but nothing as sophisticated as a crossbow or a whip or a spear or the kinds of weapons. The big hammer is so impressive. Also, we see that the Warhammer Titan has a clever ruse that it uses as a defense mechanism, because whereas every other Titan is located in the nape, well, the Warhammer Titan sort of has this umbilical cord to a little hardened coconut shell that actually contains the person who controls it. And I have to think this is some extension of that incredible control over the hardening ability, where the Titan itself is kind of the cocoon, and what we think of as the Titan is just an appendage that's been created somewhere else. I think that's an excellent idea. I love that concept. And it's a great way to survive this battle to a degree, because one big drawback with this ruse is once you figure it out, it's really easy to disconnect that umbilicus and to sort of nullify the effects of that Warhammer Titan. And apparently it takes so much energy to create this whole appendage that's the size of a Titan, that moves like a Titan, that it is not a transformation that's easily repeated in a short period of time. That's probably part of the reason for that coconut shell around Lara when she does this transformation. Almost the same kind of shell of carbonite that we see around Annie. But it's in episode 6 as the Titan battle begins, you know, the Titan versus Titan, Eren versus Warhammer, that I realized just how much collateral damage Eren has caused. I don't think I appreciated that at the end of episode 5 when he transformed. You know, he blew up the stage. Common sense would tell me, of course, he's killing the people in the front row. But I'm caught up in the drama of the situation and the conversation between he and Eren and Willy's big speech on stage and all of that, that I didn't think about how much damage was done in that moment. But they force us to confront that in episode 6. And this is a significant change for Eren. This isn't something Eren would handle very well or be very comfortable with in the first 3 seasons of Attack on Titan. So it has to make me wonder, like, what has made him so cold in these past 4 years since we saw him at the end of season 3. I mean, he was starting to get a little vindictive and cold and talking about he must destroy his enemies, but it didn't seem to be quite this far. And I have to wonder if a lot of that is the memories of the Attack Titan that he's gotten. Like, not only the memories from Grisha, but maybe further on down the line, he's getting more and more memories that's making him grow colder, significantly changing his personality. As his hair grows longer, it's tugging on his empathy so that it doesn't work anymore. That's why he's got to cut his hair short again so he can be a nice guy again, right? And then we see the death of Zofia. She's one of those young warrior candidates that was with Udo and Falco and Gabi. And this is a character that we've come to know a little bit, so it really gives this indiscriminate death with Eren's transformation and initial attack. It gives it some gravity because we can sort of relate to this character. We didn't know her super well, but we knew her name. We had seen her before. It was more impactful than just the strangers that we also saw dead, who in honesty are equally tragic, but when you're dealing with a story, it helps to relate to the character who suffered the injury or the death or the casualty. But of course, Willy wasn't the only one who had a surprise, because Eren has his own surprise for the Marleyans as he's battling the Warhammer Titan. He kind of calls for Mikasa, and the scouts show up, and then is when Eren sort of has his twist on the attack. The scouts show up, and these ground troops in Marley have never faced anything like the special forces of the scouts, and it suddenly swings the momentum of the battle back in Eren's direction. But also, while all this fighting is going on, we learn exactly just how tightly knit the Panzer unit is. The Panzer unit, of course, are those soldiers who ride on the Cart Titan's back when Peak is in Cart Titan form. They're up there in that armored unit firing the guns, and they're a tight-knit unit. And when Peak was a little suspicious about this soldier who was leading her and Porco away. She kind of whispered to the Panzer unit. They were dedicated enough to who I imagine is their captain, Peak. They followed her. They managed to rescue her and Porco. So they're all back together to fight, and that gets us to really understand the closeness and how tightly knit this group is. But then we see it go very badly for the Panzer unit. One of them is killed with a sniper shot that's fired from a rifle by Sasha. Then as the battle continues to go on, we see the rest of them just incinerated. I mean, it looks so gruesome and so vicious and so miserable. We see them burning alive inside of that tin can on Peak's back, and we can feel Peak's agony as this is going on, and there's nothing she can do to stop it. And then after all this battle unfolds, Jean lines up with the cart Titan, and he has her in his crosshairs. He has a kill shot. Falco throws himself in between, and Falco kind of begs for mercy for Peak. And Jean seems to ignore that plea for mercy, but he also misses the shot. And the show really does plant this seed of ambiguity over whether he missed the shot because of the steam that came out when Peak left her Titan form, or if Falco's plea just connected enough with Jean's mercy to get him to maybe even subconsciously miss that shot on purpose, so to speak. I like that. I also like that because we're going to see Jean express his desire to not kill indiscriminately here. Because up on a rooftop, we see Flock and Jean have like this little difference of opinion about how to execute this scout offensive. And Jean says, like verbatim, he wants to keep casualties of civilians to a minimum. But Flock has a very different point of view. Flock apparently worships at the altar of Eren, and he's taken inspiration from this violent attack from Eren, and he seems to be in favor of indiscriminate death and destruction. So we're seeing two significantly different points of view within the Scout Corps that could lead to a very significant schism as this story unfolds. And there's a great moment with this look of disbelief on Porco's face because the scouts actually charge at his jaw titan. And he's used to seeing humans run away from the titans, not charge towards them. So he is not prepared at all for the kind of fight that the scouts bring. You know, in fact, Levi cuts his jaw when he's attacking the attack titan, attacking Eren. Looks like he's getting ready to bite Eren out of the nape. Levi cuts his jaw so he doesn't have any gripping power with those teeth. Mikasa blasts him with thunder spears, and he really has this moment of disbelief and fear, and he's shaken to his core. But as all this fighting is going on and everything looks so dark and so grim, we get to see another side of the tragedy, because we get to see that not only does tragedy bring out the worst in people, but it also brings out the best in some people. Because we see Magath telling Falco to stay safe, even though Falco's an Eldian who's in the warrior program, who seems to be designated as expendable or disposable. And then we see a gate guard doing the same thing, looking out for the child Gabi, even though she's Eldian. And we also see that gate guard get shot by a sniper shot from Sasha's rifle. And of particular significance here, Gabi makes eye contact with Sasha in this moment. And I think Gabi marks Sasha's face because Gabi will react on this experience here before the end of these 4 episodes. But Zeke does show up as the Beast Titan, but he seems to be largely ineffective. And he gets taken out really quickly by Levi without much fanfare. And at the time, I thought it was strange that we didn't see the aftermath of that battle. We didn't see Levi fully execute Zeke. But later on in episode 8, we do find out why we don't necessarily see that aftermath. But we really do see the toll continuing to be taken on Reiner's psyche. He seems to have lost the will to live, or at least the will to heal, because when he's injured in that initial attack, Falco's kind of surprised that he's not healing. And it only seems like Reiner even transformed in the first place to protect Falco, not to protect himself. And then later on, Reiner will transform again, and he will manage to save Porco from being chomped by Eren. But he is too weak to fight, and at that point in time, Eren's on his 3rd transformation, and he's out of juice also, so there's no big fight there like I thought we were going to see yet another fight between Reiner and Eren. But I do wonder what the future holds for Reiner at this point, particularly since he doesn't seem to have any warrior candidates close at hand to pass his power on to. But at the same time, I think he is psychologically compromised to the point that he probably doesn't represent much value as a weapon of war for Marley at this point. But I don't think Marley's going to accept that, so I think he's going to be forced back out there and be damaged even more. And my heart is starting to hurt for this guy that I used to have squarely in the villain category in my own mind and my own opinions. We do see Armin use his Colossal Titan for the first time on screen. I mean, maybe he's done it in the past 4 years that we haven't seen, but he takes out the whole Marley fleet of ships that are surrounding Liberio, and he does it with this massive transformation blast. And we do see the after effects of this weighing heavily on Armin because we hear his internal dialogue, and he asks himself if this is how Bertolt must have felt after he killed all the people with his blasts. We also find out that Hanji has a blimp, and that's the extraction plan for the scouts. They have these lights to work like beacons. She flies along those lights. The scouts use their ODM gear. They fly up to the blimp and they get out of there. But how did Hanji get a blimp? At the end of season 3, Hanji didn't have a blimp. I don't know if she has what it takes to build one. I think she's probably smart enough to figure it out, but the resources, the manpower, the factories, the skill, I don't know. So maybe she stole a blimp. Maybe Zeke helped her steal a blimp. We do find out there's some collaborators with the Paradis forces inside Marley's military. So I guess somebody helped her steal a blimp. Or maybe she just found a blimp lying around and claimed it. But Eren uses the Jaw Titan like a nutcracker. And you know, I'm watching this in December, so I'm thinking about Christmas, so I'm thinking about the actual nutcracker ballet or what have you. And to see him using Porco as the Jaw Titan as a nutcracker to crack that coconut that has Lord Tybur in it, that was kind of fun. It was kind of satisfying. I really had to wall off the reality of the death and destruction from the fun images on screen in order to enjoy it at times. And this is one of those parts where I just isolated and hyper-focused on what was going on there. And it was fun because he does crack the shell. He does eat the Warhammer Titan, so I must assume he has now consolidated yet more Titan power into himself. It looks like he had planned to eat Porco, but Reiner rescued Porco. So is Eren's plan to consolidate as many Titans as he can into himself in order to bring an end to this conflict and defeat the world? I kind of feel like that's what he's looking for, though it seems like things are going to take a different direction by the end. But when Eren gets up to the blimp, to the extraction blimp that Hanji's stolen from somewhere, Levi kicks him in the face again, and I wasn't expecting that. But that's when we realize that Eren has gone rogue. And what Eren's doing here wasn't the plan of Hanji. It wasn't the plan of Zeke or of Levi. This was Eren's plan, and he probably knew their plan, so he's wedging himself in there. But he's gone rogue, so when he tells Reiner he's become the bad guy and become the villain, he kind of has, because Levi and Hanji are upset with him, but because he has that founding Titan power, he's too important to let go of, so they have to keep rescuing him every time he runs off, no matter how badly it hurts the Scout Corps. 6 people died on this particular mission, and it all seems like Eren's fault. I like that twist. I like seeing Eren go rogue here, a little bit of an Anakin Skywalker phase here in Eren's story. Will he redeem himself by the end? That's the question now we have to ask. But Gabi does make her way to the blimp with Falco in tow, and when she gets aboard, she kills Sasha. She takes her rifle, shoots Sasha. You know, I'm hoping it's just an injury and that Sasha's going to live. I start hoping they might have more Titan serum and they can feed a Titan to her or something. But it's not in the cards. This is our farewell to Sasha, to Potato Girl. A character who was a lot of fun. She always brought levity to the show, but she was also a fierce warrior. She was a great archer. We've seen her save people. We've seen her save the scouts time and again. And this is her farewell, and it happens with such a cheap shot. You know, a cheap shot from a little kid who snuck on board a blimp. What a sad way to bid farewell to Sasha. But we do get to have one last moment of joy from Sasha. Her final word is meat. Always thinking about eating and food, that wonderful Potato Girl. And we get the little flashback to when she stole meat from like the officer's commissary to share with her friends aboard the wall before Bertolt's second attack. So we do get to have this fondness, we get to have this heartache, we get to have a good cry as Sasha leaves. Many of us haven't felt this way since Hannes died, And many of us are probably more affected by the death of Sasha than we were the death of Hannes. I was really, really affected by the death of Hannes. I think I'm more affected by losing Sasha here. It's going to be hard for me to recover from that. But just like Eren says, I have to keep moving forward. But this does make me wonder what the future holds for Gabi. Is Gabi going to be loyal to Zeke? We know she looks up to War Chief Zeke, but now we find out that Zeke is still alive because Zeke is collaborating with the forces of Paradis. I wasn't expecting this, though I was lobbying for it. Like, it's one of those things I was hoping would happen, but I couldn't believe it when it did happen. So Zeke is in his last year. And Zeke has already shared with people that he fears once technology makes the Titans not so valuable as weapons of war, then that's the end of the road for the Eldians. So in his last term as the Beast Titan, with him having the royal blood, if he does form an alliance with Eren, well, Eren can make contact with Zeke and use the founding Titan power to the fullest and crush the world to buy time for them to develop their own technology before they are thrown away by Marley, conquered by the rest of the world, and Titans are utterly useless. So I do see where Zeke's coming from finally. I didn't know if Zeke would be determined to try to recruit Eren or the other way around, but Zeke seems to be squarely aligned with the forces of Paradis, unless it's a double cross. Like maybe it's a triple cross. I don't know how many crosses we're getting at this point, but I'm happy to see Zeke seeming motivated to help the forces of Paradis, but also I don't know if maybe it's a trick to use this against Paradis. We'll just have to wait and see. But as far as Gabi, will she be loyal to Zeke and suddenly become a scout? I don't see the other scouts welcoming her with open arms by any means at all. And I also don't see her ever being fond of Eren after this whole destruction that Eren unleashed on Liberio. But what does the future hold for Gabi? She's going to be torn between this loyalty to Zeke and whatever plan Zeke is going to present and her hatred of the scouts. This is really interesting. I want to see which way this girl goes. I know she's hated by much of the fandom. I'm not a real big fan of hers either right now, but I think this could be a real interesting storyline to follow through the final season. But this group of episodes, they really do a good job of exploring the cycle of hate and vengeance and how one person or one group or one party does something terrible to this other party that they hold on to that hatred in a generational fashion. So then they do the same thing to the other party, but so much time has passed, they seem like the aggressor. So then they're building more hate, and they do the same thing. And they're building more hate, and it just goes back and forth and back and forth. And the real question for humanity, for humankind, in both the real world and the fictional one of Attack on Titan, is how do we break this cycle? Because in the real world, I don't think we figured out a way to do it. But we're halfway through the 16 episodes that I needed to get all caught up for the final season, so I'll be ready on January 9th. I've got 8 episodes down, 8 more episodes to go, so I can't wait to get started on those. And with that, I'm going to say that I'm proud of you for watching anime, and I'll talk to you again soon.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. It really means a lot to me. If you think you might be in a position to help the channel on Patreon, well, there is a link in the video description. Please click on it and have a little look around. Thank you.